today, everybody, to our virtual boardroom called Aim High, a life coaching experience for leaders who want to transcend their leadership and their results. The boardroom has been facilitated by HR Recruit and Penny Wood. My name's Jo Thompson, and I'm a consultant for HR Recruit. I'm joined today by Penny, who will introduce herself shortly. She's going to take you through a live, fun, interactive coaching workshop, which will help you gain clarity of thought so you can take new actions that will give you the results that you want to transform your leadership. So I'm now going to hand you over to Penny, who will introduce herself and start the boardroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you. Before we start, can I just check that you can see my screen that I'm sharing? I'm not going to use it a lot, but yeah, don't worry. This is not going to be death by PowerPoint. Don't worry.
See that,
Good, lovely. Well, welcome everybody, and welcome to Aim High, today's live coaching experience. I'm really excited to be here with you today, and I hope you're going to enjoy this. So I'm assuming that you've joined today because you're somebody who wants to develop themselves. You want to aim high. You want to develop your leadership and transform your results. And I'm just going to talk through a couple of things. I want you to type the number in the chat if one of these resonates with you. So number one, you've joined because you want to get clarity on an area of your life or your leadership that's not working effectively. That's number one. Number two, you're frustrated with a situation you're dealing with right now, and it's stopping you from moving forwards, and you want to get it sorted. So you thought this might be an interesting experience to go through. Number three, you want to understand the impact of what's happening with something you're dealing with right now, so that you can create new actions which will deliver new results. Or number four, you just came just to have a bit of fun and see what's going on, which is absolutely fine too. So what are we getting in the chat? What kind of things are we getting in the chat?
Fours. Mainly fours. There's been a one, mainly fours.
Okay, good. Okay, so you'll just come for a bit of discovery. Okay, well, I'm going to get you working, so I hope you're going to enjoy this. You're definitely in the right place. So today you're going to get a taste of what it feels like to be on a live group coaching call, where you can either work quietly on your own, just be with your own private thoughts as we work through the session. You can participate if you want by asking questions or sharing what you're experiencing as we go through the session. And you'll get an experience of what it feels like to really challenge yourself, your thoughts, your feelings about something that's bothering you right now. And I hope you come with something, or as I'm talking to you, you're starting to think, oh, that's really annoying me right now. I'd like to work on that this lunchtime, okay? So before we start, let me go through some quick housekeeping items. I'll tell you a little bit, and then I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Then before we just start the coaching session, I'll give you a little bit of information about self-awareness to set yourself up for the activity in the coaching session, okay? So for housekeeping, you're going to need an A4 piece of paper or a journal or a notebook and pen, just a plain piece of paper. There's a workbook that Jo will put into the chat for you to download if you want to follow that. Don't worry if you can't access it now. It will be sent to you after the session, but for now, just a piece of paper. As I said, it will be as interactive as you want. Some of you may want to just sit and reflect. Some of you want to share something as we go along. That's totally fine. There'll be opportunities to do that. We'll see how much time we've got because, and you can always ask questions or share something at the end. I'm aiming to finish at 1:30. And the last thing I want you to do is now I want you to turn your phone off, or if it's like this, turn it over. Okay, so you can't see those notifications. Okay, shut the door, get rid of the dog, do whatever you need to, and just breathe. And this is going to be an hour just for you. Okay, so I just want you to start to kind of get really focused and get really close, present to what we're going to do. Okay, so this is about you. Okay, so before we start, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm based in Devon. For those of you who don't know me, I'm in Exeter. I'm an executive coach, learning and development specialist, professional speaker, and public speaking coach. I've coached leaders all across the spectrum, from entry-level leaders to middle-level leaders, right the way through to managing directors, CEOs all over the world. I've got a global reach. I've worked all over the world. There's, you can see there's the Philippines with some of my colleagues there in Manila. There's some colleagues there from Bangalore in India. I love working with people all over the world. It's so interesting. You'll see a Toastmasters logo there. Toastmasters, for those of you who don't know, is not somebody in a red coat that is runs a speech evening. It's a not-for-profit speaking and leadership organisation, and I'm what's called a distinguished Toastmaster, which is the highest level that you can achieve in Toastmasters. It took me 4 years to achieve it. And I was president of Talk of the Towers Toastmasters in New York, which was the ex-Twin Towers Club when I lived there. That's where I got into Toastmasters. You'll see at the top right there, the UN, the United Nations. That's the headquarters in New York. And prior to my L&D experience, I worked there as a senior project manager on, for me, it was an iconic project. It was a $2 billion historic renovation of that whole complex. It was an amazing experience, and it was a total honor to work on that project. So I've coached, and I've got lots of varied leadership and management experience, which has been really complementary to my L&D specialism. I'm going to come out of the PowerPoint now and just stop sharing that, just so I can see you and we can get connected, okay? Now, before let me just, 1 second. There. Okay, so before we get into our first exercise, the last thing I want to share with you is I want you to get really connected to the coaching space. And I want to talk to you around something about self-awareness, okay? Being self-aware, it's a key element of emotional intelligence. And Daniel Goleman, the famous psychologist who's written extensively about this subject, he talks about self-awareness being the ability to read and understand your emotions, as well as recognize the impact on others, okay? And being self-aware and connected to your thoughts, your reactions, your level of emotion, it allows you to understand situations and other people more clearly. It allows you to make better decisions. It allows you to manage and control your feelings. And it allows you to respond to others more effectively and deal with situations, especially ones that are challenging and difficult decisions you've got to make. And also, self-awareness is a choice that you make, okay? And I want you throughout this session to get really present to your levels of self-awareness as we go through the session, okay? We're going to do a few exercises together. I'm going to ask you a series of questions and throughout all the exercises. And as I'm asking them, I want you to write down your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, what you're becoming self-aware of, what you're becoming aware of. I'll tell you what to do as we go along. I'll guide you through the process, and I hope you enjoy it. So unless we've got any questions there, Joe, I think I'm ready to go. Anything come up in the chat?
No.
Good.
No.
Great. Okay, so grab your piece of paper and your pen or the workbook, and let's get into our first exercise. So for the first part, I want you to think about one area, just one, right? One area of your leadership that you want to work on today for this short session. And I'm going to ask you some questions to help you generate that, okay? But first of all, for those of you with a piece of paper, using a blank piece of paper, I want you to put in the middle of that piece of paper, I want you to put an empty rectangle or a circle, whatever you want to do, in the middle of the piece of paper, okay? For those of you who are following the workbook, you'll see there's a kind of box in the middle of the empty page, okay? So when you're thinking about this one area of your leadership that you're going to work on, I want you to write it down inside that box. But let me help you think about what it is, okay? So consider, is there something that's stopping you from moving forward in your leadership journey? Maybe there's something you're ignoring, that you're burying in the sand. Maybe there's something stopping getting you the results that you know you want to achieve and then you know you can achieve. Maybe there's something holding you back. Is there something you're holding on to? Is there something you need to let go of? What's frustrating you? What's causing you levels of anxiety and stress? I hope you're beginning to kind of, the questions are beginning to evoke some kind of, you're getting present to something at work that you're having to deal with that's really impacting your leadership. Maybe it's making you unhappy. Maybe it's affecting your relationships at home as well as in work. We all know this stuff is all connected. So I'm hoping that you're starting to think about that one element that you're going to work on today, okay? And what I want you to do is write that element of your leadership that you want to work on in that box, okay? And once you've got something in that box, can you just put a yes in the chat? And Joe, let me know how we're doing, whether people want a little bit more time. If anybody is interested, if anybody wants to share, feel free. I'm happy to. If anyone's got something they're really like, yeah, I've been waiting, I can't believe it. Is anyone? You don't have to tell me what it is. You can just say, yeah, I've really got something. I know. I've been waiting.
There's loads of yeses, Penny. There's loads. I've lost count.
Good. Okay. Great. Well, I'm really glad. So you've got your box, you've got you're ready to go. So let's move on to part 2 of this section. So now I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And when I'm asking them to you, I want you to write down your thoughts anywhere around that box. So anywhere on the page, you can connect them with directional arrows. You can write them down as a list. You can categorize them. You can make drawings, whatever you want to do. Okay. So it's that you've got your issue in the middle. And then as I ask you various different questions, I want you to start writing all the issues around it. Okay. So my first question is, what's the biggest priority for this area you've chosen to work on right now? What's the biggest priority of it? What's the thing that you really need to get done? What's the thing that's getting in the way? Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's a policy. Maybe it's a set of circumstances. So what's the biggest priority for this area that you've chosen to work on? Maybe you've got a priority over here, and then you think, oh, actually, that's a priority too. You may start, when you start thinking it through, you might think, oh, yeah, that's priority there, but actually it's connected to that over there. So just start thinking about what are those priorities. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of time, okay? So I just want you to take this at your own pace. And when you've thought about something, I want you to think, what else? What else is there? Okay. Now, what impact is this issue that you've put in this box having on your life and your leadership? Now, you might want to split your life into one area, your leadership in another area. I want you to really think about what's the impact, what's the cost of this issue on your life and on your leadership. I want you to start thinking about the cost of that. What's the cost of it? Is that impact worth it? Because there always balances, right? Is it worth it? Now I want you to think, now you're getting present to, the impact of it. Maybe it's you're having less time with your family. Maybe it's meaning you're working too late. Maybe it means you can't get a project done. Or it could be all sorts of things. Maybe it's something you want to achieve yourself and somebody's stopping you. So now I want you to think about what are some of the barriers and some of the obstacles and some of those frustrations that are stopping you from succeeding. Where are those barriers? What do they look like? Are they a thing? Are they a person? Are they something in the company that's not happening right? Is there somebody at a high level that's stopping you? Is it somebody that you're not getting on within your team and you're thinking, I don't know what it is. I just can't work it out why we don't get on. What is it? What are those frustrations? What's stopping you from succeeding? Just write all your thoughts as they come into your head. Doesn't matter how they are. You don't have to structure them. I just want you to write what starts coming into your head. If you're sitting there and thinking, well, that's it. Remember, I always want to know what else is there. There's always something else, right? Now, I want to ask you, related to this issue, what have you got that you no longer want? What have you got that you no longer want related to that issue? Maybe there's something that you had and you worked through it and you're thinking, don't need that anymore. What's the use of it? What's the point of it? I want you to think about, what have you got that you no longer want? Now, I want to ask you, if you don't change this issue, you don't change what's happening inside that box, what will it cost you in the long run? Maybe it'll cost your happiness. Maybe it's something real deep inside. There's a conflict with your values and you're battling with it. And it's actually having quite a serious impact. Maybe it's impacting on your family, your partner, your relationship. If you don't change this, what will it cost you in the long run? Write as many things as you can think of down. I want to ask you, we all have a story, right? We all have a story about something. And I want to ask you, what story is holding you back? What story do you make up to yourself about this issue? Maybe you tell other people about it. What is the story that's holding you back related to this issue? Because remember, that story, it may not be true. Often we have a story in our head, and actually when we think about it, it's actually not true. How do you know it to be true? I want you to think about that, a story that's holding you back. Now, lastly, I want to ask you, what are you avoiding or putting off? What are you avoiding or putting off? Nah, I won't put that down. Yeah, go on, put it down. Put it down. So as we get present to all these different things, you've got an awful lot of things there around you, right? I hope you're starting to see a broader picture of what's happening in the area of your life or your leadership that you've chosen to work on. And by reading, I want you to just look at all the different things you've written down. Maybe you've done drawings, images, whatever there's there for you. I hope it's giving you some clarity of thought around why things aren't working. Now, I'd just like to open up the floor at this point. Obviously, you don't need to say what it is, okay, because that's your private thing. But I want to just ask anyone on the floor what showed up for them. What did you notice when you went through that exercise? Anybody want to share what happened? Anything coming through, Joe? Ah, look at that, Jodie. Yeah, it's me holding myself back, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's a definite for me to speak to others. Yeah, it's stressing me out. Yeah, I get that. That's good. That's good. That's good, Sarah. It's good that it's stressing you out. And there was somebody there who said they'd want a definite need to talk to others. That's really interesting that showed up, because it's really good to get some clarity around that. And I want you to think about who those people are, and I want you to write a list down of who they are. Okay. Why does it never shift? Yeah. Yeah. Lack of self-belief. Yeah. And that's the thing, we get stuck, right? We get stuck. Too much time spent on others' opinions of me, not enough opinion of myself. Yeah, right? Absolutely. Yeah, what's everyone else thinking? Yeah, actually, this really allows you to focus. I knew it, just don't take the time to deal with it. Yeah. And there's an impact there. There's definitely impact, and definitely an impact there, right? That's really great. Thank you. There's some really great things coming through. Okay, so I want to move on to exercise 2. Oh, yes, what's that? I can change my happiness, taking accountability. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, you're going to be doing that in a minute. So let's move on to our second exercise. Now, this is around exploring possibilities. It's on page 2 of the workbook if you're there, because it's now time to start exploring this about how could you do things differently? What do you need to do to get a different result? Now, some of you have, you've become aware to some of the things that you need to do, okay? Now I want you to start writing those down. And I'm going to ask you some questions around that, okay? So what does success look like? If you were guaranteed to succeed related to this issue that you're looking at, what would you do? Imagine you're fully confident with your abilities. What could you do? What does success look like? I want you to imagine it, that issue fully resolved. What does it look like? And again, you can write it down however you whoever put access the workbook, it should be in the chat and you will get it at the end of the session. Okay, no problem. Okay, so if you haven't got the workbook, that's no problem. Just move on to your next page of your, of your piece of paper, or write on the back, however you want to do. Now, thinking about everything, what would success look like? This is a great question. I love this question. Who would you be if no one was watching? Who would you be if no one was watching? Ooh, yes. Got it. Yeah. That successful person, right? What does that look like? What could you do if you knew you couldn't fail? So with all that stuff you've got on that first page, what if that was all gone and you knew you couldn't fail? What could you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Now, some of you have already answered the next one. What decision have you been avoiding? What barriers, what obstacles and objections that you were procrastinating about, what could you do to overcome all of that? And I want you to think big. I want you to think about all sorts of different options. Don't just go for one. That's fine, Amanda. Thank you. I want you to think, what would someone who inspires you do in this situation? Think about somebody you respect, you admire, somebody who inspires you. What do you think they would do? If you can't think what I would do, what would somebody else do? If you did one thing effectively and consistently over time, what would make the biggest impact? If you did one thing effectively and consistently over time, what would make the biggest impact? What would also happen if you didn't do something? So if you just looked at this all today, you put your piece of paper down at the end of the session and you didn't do anything, what would happen? Who could help you? Who could you ask for support? What resources do you need to deal with that issue? How can you create team around you? Who do you need to have conversations with? Somebody mentioned that earlier. They needed to speak to somebody. the last thing I want you to think about is, how will you take care of yourself while you're dealing with this? How will you take care of yourself? Because what's going to happen is, if you really dive into this, and when I'm coaching people, we get really into what they're going to do. I always say to them, I want to make sure that, how are you going to take care of yourself? Because you're going to go through, I hope you're experiencing it. I hope you're feeling uncomfortable today, right? Because that's my intention. It's to make you feel uncomfortable and make you get really present to what's going on and what you think you should be doing, and you're just not doing it, right? So as you move forward, I want you to think about how you will take care of yourself at the same time of putting yourself out of that comfort zone. Okay, you may need some support around you. You may need somebody, you may need to, I want to go for a walk every day and I've not been doing it, and that's how I'm going to look after myself. What are you going to do? How are you going to take care of yourself whilst you're making this change? Because some of them can be instant, depending what it is. Some of it can be gradual. But when you get those down days, I tried this. Oh, I want to give up. No, I don't want you to give up. How are you going to take care of yourself? So I hope you've got now an idea of what possibilities are open to you, who could help you, where you could get support, what you need to do, who you need to speak to. It's time to kind of galvanize all of that. And this is obviously, I'm doing this quite fast, by the way, because we've got this short session. So I'm going to shift you on now. And I want you to get into some commitment for yourself. Because once you get into the commitment, you start generating new actions that will generate different results, right? That's what it's about. You've got to create new actions to generate new results. If you do the same thing that you've been doing all these past months and it's getting you nowhere, you're going to get the same thing. What I want you to do is generate something different. Okay. So I'm going to move on to exercise 3, which is on page 3 of the workbook, which is your commitment to action. I'm going to ask you a series of questions around that. So I want you to start to put a list of actions that you can get working on straight away or within the next week, okay? Write everything down that you can think of. It doesn't matter about the order. Just get your thoughts out of your head and into action, okay? Just write down as much as you can think of. Doesn't have to be a list. You can just do drawings. You can put arrows, connecting everything. And if you're struggling because there's so many things you want to do, I just want you to pause for a moment, take a breath, and think about one. Just think about one action that you could take. What's jumping out at you? What's the smallest, easiest first step for you? And with that one action, I'm hoping you've got more, but it doesn't matter if it's just one thing, because sometimes these things are big, right? And it's like, I can't deal with the whole thing, but I will do one thing. Okay. Let's expand it a little further. And what's the next step or strategy you could take? Okay. So I want you to consider, is there something you could do differently? Who needs to know about your plans? What conversations need to happen? And when are you going to have them? What do you want to start doing more of? What do you want to stop doing? How could you make it more enjoyable, more fun? You know, it might be an issue where you just, you know, no one's having fun. How can you make it more enjoyable and fun for everyone around you so that you inspire them, you get these different energy? How can you make that shift? It's making that shift out of that kind of stuck space to something that's much wider, much bigger, much freer. And when you've got your actions, this is the bit that I really want you to think about. I want you to write down a date by which you will complete each action, even if it's just one, okay? Because otherwise, if you don't put a date by when, and some people want to put a time as well, because they know there's a certain meeting that they're targeting. If it's something like that, there's no intention and there's no commitment, and then there'll be no shift, okay? And all those barriers will come right back up. So I want you to think, why, by when? It might be straight after this call, which will be fantastic. It might be, right, tomorrow morning, I've got a meeting with so-and-so. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to email them this afternoon. Right, I'm going to set the agenda. This is what we're going to talk about. So make sure you get that commitment in there. I want that commitment, okay? Remember, without intention, you'll never achieve your goal, okay? I'm going to give you a minute or so just to finish that up in your own space, so you can get your own thoughts. I know some of you will be struggling with that date thing. I know you'll be like, oh, well, I do. Just put it down. I'm telling you, just put a date down. Okay, I'll give you about 30 seconds. Just to wrap that up. Okay. So that's the end of the exercises we wanted to do. I wanted to do with you together. And I just want you to reflect on that experience. What are you present to now that you weren't present to before? What surprised you? What did you get out of doing the exercise? Did it make you think, oh, maybe this is I really enjoyed this, you know, it really got me thinking, you know. Lots of people like it because it allows them to kind of really focus in on something. Maybe it's something you could do with your team, with your colleagues. So what you just think about that. The balance I need to ensure I don't pull myself under too much pressure, but equally not. Yeah, absolutely, right? It's a real strong balance there. It's really hard to get that balance right, yeah? You want to push yourself, and you want that adrenaline. You need that adrenaline to get there, but you don't want to put yourself under so much pressure that, that's the barrier that comes up, right? Exactly. Yeah. Joe, is it possible to open up the dialogue now, just so that people can have a chat?
They just need to unmute themselves, Penny, that's all. Everyone can speak.
Okay, good. Okay, so if would anyone like to share what they got from that experience?
I don't mind sharing.
Yeah, hello. Who's that?
Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. Nice to meet you.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah, the things I've written down just in terms of, I think the realization is actually probably the impact it's having on me professionally and personally. I think my sleep's been a bit impacted. I think I'm thinking about all this stuff as I go to bed, which then I guess leads me on to how much maybe I care. And it's not that I didn't think I didn't care, but I guess the impact it's having on me outside of work, and the impact it's having on me and I guess my self-worth. But actually what I've realized is so much of this isn't on me. As Bobby said, it's the pressure, but it's the balance. So actually, if I engage with the right people and have the right conversations and use the right resources, so much of this can be lifted from me and my shoulders, and I'm putting it on my own shoulders. It's not external pressures. It's that imposter syndrome. It's there. So yeah, I think that's been quite worthy.
That's amazing. That's amazing, Sarah, because that thing when you go to bed at night and you're thinking about it and it's really hard to get to sleep. There's something that there's an exercise I do with people is that when they go into their bedroom at night, and you might want to try this, is before you go through the door, through the threshold of your room, you have like a mental bin, like a waste bin, and you say to yourself, right, I'm going to throw all that stuff into the bin, and it's going to stay in that bin until the morning. And then you go through your room. It sounds weird, right? But when you do it, you kind of say, right, I'm going to leave it behind. And it takes a bit of training. You may have some meditation things that you listen to at night to help you sleep. But it's what's really interesting for you is that it's made you look up and look out, hasn't it? That exercise to make you see that actually it's not just me. There's other people around me that could help sort this out. Wow, that's really powerful. I hope it's given you. And have you got lots of actions in there of things that you want to do?
Yes, yeah. And actually one of the dates is in 4 days' time, because I've got a meeting kind of around it on Friday. So it's kind of, I think, it was going to help me structure it a little bit more, because I've kind of put a short term, a medium and a long term.
Brilliant.
So yeah, no, I feel, a little bit, calmer about that.
When you say you feel a little bit calmer, is that a physical thing? Is it a mental thing? Do you feel like you've just gone, like what? How do you feel?
When I was writing down, so I have my main thing, and then obviously I write down everything around it. And as I started writing, it's almost quite cathartic. It's almost like you're getting out of your head. But as I'm writing it, then there's some overlap, and I think, oh, hang on, that's not really for me to manage that. And actually, I need to speak to X about that. So now I'm looking at it and take a step back. I'm like, I've got a really good, solid HR team around me and a bigger network. Why am I trying to manage this? So actually getting it out, and I rarely sit with a pen and paper. I live on a computer, and actually I started, my writing was really neat at first, and then it became quite, but I feel like it has been quite cathartic just to get it out of my head and on the bit of paper. So I might put it on my wall, frame it.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good thing to do, because you can kind of create and don't put the problem up on the wall, put the actions up on the wall, because that's the thing that will generate you. And that will get, and today, when I talked about that self-awareness, you've really got a level of self-awareness through that. So congratulations. Well done for working through that, Sarah. I hope that was really useful.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Anybody else like to share something that they experienced going through that?
I was just going to say, if I may.
Yes, Bobby. Yes.
I've just become self-employed, having been part of big HR teams and stuff for what feels like 300 years. And I'm trying really hard not to, what's the word? Just to sort of like regret how little time I gave myself for self-reflection while I was working full-time.
Wow.
And in actual fact, now rejoice in the fact that I have given myself time to self-reflect. But if there's just anything that I just seeing all of these people on the call with all the things that they're actually going on, I just, I'm just so pleased to see that there are people who are giving themselves the time to self-reflect, because it's just so important, and how much I've actually just got out of just doing that for clearing my head and finding ways of doing things. Yeah.
Gosh, Bobby, that's incredible. That's given me, I've got tingles from that, because that is what I aim to do with so many people, because we're going at 150 miles an hour, right? Want this, and we don't give ourselves that time. And look at that. Okay, I've done this quite fast, right? Normally it takes a lot longer, but even in 40 minutes, you really, and you, what did you find for yourself? Did you find, right, I'm going to do this, what did you discover?
Well, being one of the people who put myself down as the 4, just coming to explore, and then going from the, oh God, it's transformational leadership. I don't know what that now means to me, now that I'm self-employed. Crying out loud, actually, the issue is, how do I continue to be a leader without role, status, title? And so it was really expansive of that, of actually just that level of self-reliance about now being about me, but the fact of that I can still be in community, I can come and do things like this, but just to sort of like fathom whatever it might be. And that's the one for today, but just to make sure that I'm doing this, to make sure I stay connected. It's really important, and it's been fabulous. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Bobby. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing that. It really helps to understand that, because when I do these, I usually go through them in quite a lot of silence, because I like to give people, that time. But yeah, it's great to hear that. So thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, everybody. Well, look, that comes to the kind of end of that session today. I hope you enjoyed that, and to give you something to really think about. There's something I want to just share with you before I go. Let me share my screen. Let me go there, because let me talk about that. Oh, actually, let me go back. Yeah. First of all, if you've really enjoyed this today, and I see lots of you have, and you're interested in working with me, I would love for you to work with me. And if you want to explore more as well, feel free to put your name, because some people, if you've got your name and your email address, it's the same. Don't worry about it. But if it's different, put your name, your email address. And WP in brackets means with permission, so that's allowing me to contact you. Please feel free to put that into the chat. And then the other thing is that you don't know it, but you just experienced a part of an online coaching program that I've created, and that it's going to be coming soon later on in the year, and I'm going to be rolling it out called Aim High. It's a 7-module leadership development coaching program. And what you do is you do something similar to what we've done today. This is almost part of the first module, where you make a discovery of something you're going to work on. And to give you an idea of how it works, there are 7 modules in the program. Each is 1 hour long, so you get 7 hours of coaching. You can access it via an online portal. You can do it either as a group coaching, where you create community and we do it like this together, or you can do it on your own, where it's self-paced. There'll be workbooks for every module, a bit like the one that I gave you today, because this is just a taster of it. There are also videos, so when I do the group sessions, I'll record them and put them up there. There are previous ones that you can access, so that's fine. There are lots of additional resources there, and everything is in one place. Okay. And if you're interested to learn about Aim High, if you're somebody or you may know somebody else who's interested, or your organization may be interested, it's something that I can come into organizations and do. It is from a virtual online platform, but also I can come into organizations. So say you've got a team that is looking to develop, you've got a team not getting on, there's lots of disruption, that's the kind of thing that we could do, and I can work it out with you through your organization. So there are various different ways of doing that. If you're interested in Aim High, if you could put Aim High, your name and your email address, and with permission, in the chat, that would be great. And then also, I want you to keep in touch. I love keeping in touch with people. Feel free to link up with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on social media. Those of you who do follow me will see that I'm posting a lot of content at the moment. And Facebook as well. You can access me by Facebook. If you want to take a quick snapshot of that, feel free to take that with your phone. And yeah, definitely keep in touch, because that's what I like. I want to create community around this. And then I guess finally what I want to leave you with is something that happened to me whilst I had this vision of creating my own consultancy, and Bobby, this will resonate with you when you take that jump. My original vision was to create my consultancy where I could travel the world and go and see the world whilst I was working. And this is actually a picture of me when I was going around the world on my way to, I think, the Philippines or India. I can't remember, because when I look at my travel history, there were so many countries, I didn't know where I was. But this was me doing a desert safari in Dubai. And I can remember, honestly, sitting there with that sunshine thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I've created this incredible life, and, like Walt Disney says, if you can dream it, you can do it. And I wanted to leave that with you, because no matter what situation you're in, no matter what you're dealing with, honestly, if you dream it, you really can achieve it. And I hope that that's kind of left you feeling inspired to get out there and just get on with it and get pushing, right? Because you deserve it. Okay. And with that, Joe, I'd like to hand back to you to say thank you very much for today. I hope everyone's enjoyed that. And I look forward to being in touch with you all soon.
Thanks, Penny. And I'm sure that everyone's really enjoyed that. There's been some really great comments in the chat box, so thanks very much. And also thanks very much for your energy and passion. It's very infectious, so I'm hoping that everyone's got quite a lot from that. I will send out an email this afternoon to everyone that's signed up, and there will be details on there about how to access a copy of the recording. And also, if you do want another copy of the handout, then please put a message on the LinkedIn post. Our next event is next Thursday, the 2nd of March at 12:30, and it's called Bringing Scrum to the HR Boardroom, and there will be a link in the email. Otherwise, I'd just like to say thanks very much to Penny. It's been a really good session, and thanks very much to everybody who signed up. I hope you've really enjoyed it.